Historians uncovered shocking truths about Jesus that could change everything. Few knew what truly happened that night in Gethsemane, surrounded by olive trees whispering secrets of ages past. The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters among the disciples. He knelt in the dirt, his breath ragged, beads of sweat mingling with blood, a rare and perplexing miracle that sent chills down the spine. Jesus faced a monumental choice, his heart thundering in his chest, a tension slicing the air. He knew betrayal lingered in the shadows, the weight of humanity's sins pressing heavily upon him, and his soul ached with a primal fear that paralyzed his very being. The heavens seemed to hold their breath as he shouted, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." His voice trembled, vibrating with anguish, echoing through the night. Historically, this moment was pivotal, the turning point before the storm of trials and crucifixion. It resonated from Jerusalem, a city steeped in conflict and prophecy, where the Roman Empire's iron grip clashed with fervent faith. The disciples, mere boys thrown into adult chaos, could sense the ominous air, their faces pale, eyes wide with confusion and dread. They tried to offer comfort, but their own fear and uncertainty locked their tongues. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to disaster. And then, the betrayal by Judas was no mere act of treachery, it was the sharp twist of a knife, a secret that sent shockwaves through the hearts of all who witnessed it. Gasps erupted, and whispers of disbelief rippled through the air. How could he? Someone stammered, their voice thick with betrayal. The miracle of his impending sacrifice hung heavily, ungraspable yet tangible. No one could fathom the depths of his command over fate, the divine juxtaposition of his suffering that led to salvation. He could have called down legions of angels, yet he chose this path, wrestling with silence, drawing closer to God while stepping further into humanity's despair. As the soldiers approached, swords glinting under the moonlight, tension crackled like electric air. The crowd gasped, hearts racing, as fear and confusion reigned. He stood resolute, a fierce calm amidst the chaos, his eyes burning with otherworldly strength. What thoughts churned in his mind? What unfathomable depths of love stirred within his heart? And as they seized him, a question hung in the air, heavy with dread and expectation: would he rise again? Would this sacrifice change the course of history or simply echo through time as a tragedy? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air, fraught with tension, thickened as the soldiers bound Jesus, their rough hands gripping tightly, as if to quell the storm of his spirit. The moon watched in silence, a witness to the unfolding drama, as the disciples stumbled backward, paralyzed by fear. For a fleeting moment, time held still, the world outside of Gethsemane fading into obscurity, leaving only this sacred confrontation at the heart of their faith. With every step the soldiers took, marching their captive toward the city, the olive trees seemed to sigh, their ancient branches swaying gently, as if mourning the inevitable. The whispers of the leaves carried a question inherent to all of creation: could love endure the deepest pain? Jesus walked on, his presence a powerful testament to the complexity of the divine plan unfolding in ways none could fully comprehend. Peter, consumed by a firestorm of loyalty and despair, drew his sword in a desperate bid to protect his master. The blade glimmered ominously, reflecting the struggle within him. In a reckless moment, he struck out, the tip of the sword catching the ear of the high priest's servant, causing blood to spill upon the ground red like the fruit of the trees that bore witness to such an act of desperation. Enough! Jesus commanded softly, yet with a sharp authority that cut through the tension. Kneeling, he healed the wound, an embodiment of grace that both confused and astounded those who remained. As the chaotic serenade of voices erupted around them, the disciples began to scatter, fear driving them in every direction. They were lost in the shadows, struggling to reconcile the man they had followed so fervently with the suffering that lay before them. None could shake the torment rising in their chests, a haunting question echoing in their minds: had they truly understood him at all? In the distance, the flickering torches painted the darkness with orange light, casting elongated shadows of betrayal and uncertainty. The pathway tightened, snaking through the enthralled city walls, and Jesus walked with purpose, a resolute calm enveloping him, as if he were already in communion with the divine, despite the agony that loomed ahead. The world held its breath, the stakes rising, and an unsettling weight of fate hovered over them. As they reached the high priest's courtyard, the air thickened again, an anticipation settling over the gathering crowd. Trials awaited not just for him, but for all who had borne witness to the events spiraling out of control. The very core of understanding would be tested, faith unfurling like a fragile flower, and the chasms of doubt would gnaw at the hearts of the faithful. Some whispered of false claims, others pondered the role of prophecy, drowning in their confusion. Could it be that he truly bore the sins of a fallen world? Anxiety twisted through their minds like vines, grappling with notions of power, sacrifice, and the nature of the divine, and yet, in the depths of chaos, something extraordinary lingered unspoken, the promise of redemption, woven into the very fabric of the evening. The vision of a world transformed echoed in shadows, hinting at a mystery that would resonate through ages untold. In that profound silence, as they awaited the next unfolding moment, a singular thought flickered like a flame in the night: what if the anguish would not cease but lead to a greater understanding of love's persistence in the face of despair? What if the darkness that loomed ahead were the very step needed toward eternal light? As the courtyard's heavy stone walls loomed above them, casting a forbidding shadow, the crowd shifted uneasily. The murmurs of disbelief and the clatter of sandals on the cobblestones formed a chorus of confusion that echoed within each heart. Peter lingered at the edge, torn between his fears and his loyalty, watching as Jesus was led before the high priest, the weight of destiny palpable in the air. The faces of those around him betrayed a spectrum of emotions: some compassion, many indifference, and a few twisted with malice. Each moment stretched, a passage of time saturated with uncertainty, and Peter felt the shadows of his resolve threaten to consume him. Memories of the miracles, the teachings, and the intimate moments spent with Jesus danced at the fringes of his mind, invoking a question that clawed at him: had their journey together been a mirage, or was it the truest form of faith he had ever known? Inside the courtyard, Jesus stood calmly, eyes fixed forward, embodying acceptance as the high priest directed accusations his way. "You claim to be the Messiah, the Son of God," he intoned, each word dripping with skepticism. "What say you?" The crowd drew nearer, anticipation sparking a magical thrill mingling with apprehension. Yet, in Jesus' response lay a profound simplicity that belied the complexity of his mission. "You say it," he replied gently, the authority in his voice both sobering and illuminating. Each syllable seemed to penetrate the hearts of the gathered, revealing truths most were unwilling to grasp. It was clear: the path of the righteous often demands a descent into chaos before one can ascend to glory. Peter, observing dispassion and repercussions unfolding between the priest and the prophet, grappled with his own reality. The draw to darkness and fear tugged at him, compelling him to reconsider: what if he too faltered as others had? Surrounding him, fellow disciples were blurring into the background, each drawing further from their steadfast commitment. Meanwhile, Jesus, embodying transcendence, appeared filled with a strange sort of peace. Could it be that in surrender lay strength? The image of the prior night, where he had prayed deeply, resonated within Peter's heart. He recalled the weight of despair that Jesus bore alone as the olive trees whispered secrets of the divine. The sacrifice of blood, the symbolic representation of a greater offering, revealed itself amidst the tumult. Yet not all hearts were moved, and a shift began to unfold. Those who had once celebrated Jesus' miracles began to coalesce in uncertainty, testing their beliefs. "What good is a king who cannot save himself?" one voice called out, skepticism lacing the sound. The reminiscing gentleness of understanding slowly fell prey to the sharp edges of doubt. Back at the periphery of the crowd, Peter's heart clenched as he watched them turn from faith to fear, their incredulity morphing into whispered betrayals. He felt the weight of their judgments, a reminder that their words echoed in his own heart. The longing to identify with his master swelled within him, yet a darkness whispered, begging him to deny this connection. As the night reached its zenith, Jesus faced the multitude, vulnerability adorned with strength. "I have come to testify to the truth," he stated, resolute. It roiled with implications, reaching into the fabric of their souls, urging them to examine the gravity of their choices. In the stillness that followed, an undeniable truth began to unfurl a deeper understanding of sacrifice and promise. If betrayal lingered on one side, how much richer was the love that remained on the other? Each heart was now faced with a choice, and yet, as thoughts whirled, uncertainty seeped through. Could they ever truly comprehend the boundless nature of divine love? Each whisper in the dark, each glimmer of hope was met with an emerging question, one that haunted the air and the hearts of the faithful. What truth lay hidden in suffering, and what could it reveal about the nature of a love willing to endure the unendurable? The cool night air cloaked the courtyard as a fragile silence enveloped the crowd, each soul grappling with the weight of the moment. The high priest, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, leaned closer to Jesus, his eyes narrowed, challenging the calm that seemed to radiate from him. "What is this truth you speak of? If you are the Messiah, prove it. Show us your power, demonstrate your might." But rather than the spectacle they anticipated, Jesus fixed his gaze on the flickering lamps that illuminated the faces of the crowd, cast in shadows of doubt and desperation. "The truth is rarely demonstrated with power but often expressed in love," he replied, his voice a blend of gentleness and authority. "You seek signs, yet you refuse to see the signs already given. I stand here not for the proud, but for the weary." Those gathered shifted uneasily, hearing in his words a challenge to their understanding, an invitation to delve deeper than mere appearances. Peter felt the stirrings of hope mixed with a smattering of fear. He yearned to stand firm, to proclaim his belief, yet the earlier doubts clung to him like wet garments. As murmurs ignited again, a sudden flash of hesitation spread. "What manner of king speaks of love when his fate looms?" a youth cried out, frustration bubbling in his voice. The question clung to the night air, demanding a response, yet the gathered multitude seemed caught between reason and faith. From the fringes of the crowd, voices began to trickle forth, some emboldened by disbelief, others seeking to reclaim their lost faith. "What can he offer us in our hour of need?" they asked, the cacophony rising louder, and anxiety deepening around them. "If he cannot defend himself, how can he save us?" It was this very question that hung in the balance, resonating deep within Peter. He looked toward Jesus, whose steadfastness radiated amidst the chaos. Here they were, gathered in judgment, yet it was Jesus who stood as a reckoning for their unyielding hearts. Would they see him for who he truly was? Or would they remain blinded by their own expectations, despairing in darkness? Is not the heart of love found in sacrifice? Jesus interjected, his eyes sweeping over the crowd, meeting the gaze of some who still held on to faith. "True kings lay down their lives for their friends, not for the applause of men." His words flowed like a river of quiet resolve, provoking ripples of reflection in the hearts of many. As he spoke, Peter felt his own heart quicken, torn between the despair of a darkening world and the radiant hope that surged through Jesus' voice. Why did surrender to love feel like the most radical act of courage? The image of that night in Gethsemane flooded his mind once more, the drop of sweat as blood, the surrender of his master echoing within his own fears. Finally, words broke forth from an elder in the crowd, "But what hope can we find if he abandons us to this fate? We sought a savior, not one destined for the cross." The accusation struck like armor-piercing skin, and the crowd murmured in agreement, doubts coalescing like storm clouds. Peter's throat tightened. He desperately sought words to reassure the wavering souls around him, words that might awaken the truth they had witnessed in their time with Jesus. Yet, he felt silenced by the very weight of impending loss. In this turmoil, a glimmer of insight ignited within him. What if, he pondered silently, the path through suffering leads to a greater understanding of this love? What if the cross is not the end but the transition to something beyond what our mortal minds can grasp? Yet even as he contemplated this profound possibility, the more immediate shadows loomed large and unyielding. The crowd remained unsettled, each heartbeat thrumming with unvoiced questions and a longing for understanding. They stood at a precipice, a moment teetering between despair and revelation. A choice awaited them: veiled in the cloak of knowledge yet to be uncovered. As the night deepened, Peter turned his eyes once more to Jesus, sensing a weight both great and mysterious radiating from him. What truth would emerge from this chaos, and how might it forever alter their journey ahead? Each individual was now faced with not just a decision about Jesus but a confrontation with their own beliefs. Would they embrace the mystery of a love willing to suffer, or recoil in fear of the unknown? The moon hung low in the star-studded sky, casting a silver hue over the courtyard where tension thickened like fog. Jesus remained still, a poignant figure amidst the tempest of human emotion and doubt. The murmurs of the crowd began to quiet, replaced by the heavy silence of hearts wrestling with their own uncertainties. "Teacher," a voice called out from the edge of the gathering. A woman stepped forward, her face sharply illuminated by the flickering oil lamps. Her eyes were filled with both defiance and hope, a duality that echoed in the hearts of many. "If you truly hold the words of life, why do you not deliver us from the chains that bind us?" Her question, steeped in desperation, reverberated through the assembly, igniting embers of anger and confusion. "Could the one who claims to be the chosen deliverer overlook our plight?" echoed another, a deep-set worry etching his brow. The cries began to weave a tapestry of doubt, entwining the faith of the faithful and the disbelief of the wavering. Jesus regarded them with compassion. "You seek liberation, yet do you not see that true freedom exists beyond the realm of chains?" He stepped forward, the light illuminating his presence, calm amidst the chaos. "It is not the shackles of men that hold your hearts captive, but the fear of a love that asks for everything while promising eternal life," shouted the cynic from the back, arms crossed defiantly. "What comfort is there in an eternity when we suffer now?" Grumbles of agreement fanned the flames of unrest as murmurs slipped into restless murmurs of discontent. The high priest, feeling the weight of his station, sought to command the audience once more. "Enough of this rhetoric. You speak of love as if it were a weapon against our oppressors, yet what is love against the might of Rome?" His voice cut through the confusion, a reminder of their dire circumstances, yet in stark contrast, Jesus' eyes glimmered with an unfathomable depth, the sheer weight of unspent sorrow mingling with hope. "Love, my friends, is the sword that shatters the chains forged by fear," he uttered with a stillness that seemed to pause time. "It is through love that walls crumble and hearts are healed." The atmosphere shifted as Jesus spoke, a ripple of realization coursing through the crowd. With every word, he released fragile threads of their burdens, questions swirling and tangling within them like fallen leaves caught in a prevailing wind. Was it not true that in love, they found the strength to face even the fiercest adversity? As Peter listened, a swell of fervor rose within him. But how? He wondered aloud, addressing both Jesus and the gathering. How can we embrace this love when it leads you to suffering? Are we to follow you into darkness? His question hung in the air, stark and poignant. The crowd fell silent, anticipation breaking like a surf against the cliffs of their doubt, all eyes fixed upon Jesus for an answer. "Dearest friends," he replied softly, "the darkness of suffering does not extinguish love, it illuminates it. Every trial establishes the depth of our character, and within each challenge, we discover the essence of our souls. It is through the very act of suffering that we come closer to understanding the infinite reach of grace." The murmurs began to stir again, this time tinged with recognition. They felt the tremors of truth dawning upon them, a spark against the backdrop of despair. Could it be that the pain they feared so deeply was, in fact, a pathway to a deeper revelation? As night deepened, an unexpected calm washed over the assembly, creating space for reflection. The vastness of the cosmos felt tangible, like the birthplace of understanding from which all lessons flowed. They faced not just Jesus, but their own unresolved questions. What was love, really? Was it a balm for their aching hearts, or an invitation to journey through shadows into new light? Just as those gathered sought a savior to free them from their chains, Peter felt the deepening quandary: could love's true power be the key to unlock their souls, even when the path led through trials on the road to understanding? In that moment, with the revelation lingering like a whisper in the night, they stood at the edge of transformation. Yet the greater question remained: would they have the courage to step into the unknown arms of love, or retreat back to the safety of familiarity? As the night wore on, The flames of the oil lamps flickered in the lightning breeze, casting shadows that danced against the worn stones of the courtyard. Those gathered remained hushed, a pool of contemplative souls drawn into the mystery of their teacher's words. Peter, caught in the undertow of uncertainty, exchanged glances with his fellow disciples. Would any of them dare to voice the question brewing within each heart? The woman who had first spoken stepped forward again, her voice trembling yet resolute. But if love shall lead us through suffering, what awaits us on the other side? Are we to abandon hope for release in this life for an unseen promise? What if we choose to love and find only despair? Ah, sweet sister, Jesus cooed gently, folding his hands before him, it is in that very question that you touch the heart of reality. Love does not promise shelter from stormy seas but rather provides a vessel to navigate through them. It is the courage to sail into the tempest, trusting that beyond the waves, the sun still rises. The crowd shifted uneasily, weighed down by visions of tempest-tossed boats far from shore. The skeptic among them sneered, easier said than done. Your words seem uplifting, yet we walk in shadows cast by iron chains and the boots of soldiers. How can we hold on to blind faith when our eyes see only harsh truths? Jesus took a breath, the moonlight tracing the contours of his face, softening the hard lines of skepticism. Every battle begins with a step into the unknown. Remember the stories of those who came before you, they too faced the phantoms of despair and doubt. Each unwavering heart birthed ripples of hope for those who would follow. As if summoned by his words, a man from the back of the crowd stood, his voice trembling with intensity. You speak of hope as though it can bloom amidst thorns. We have known only struggle. What concrete proof can you offer us that love can rise above oppression? There was a heavy silence that followed. Jesus' gaze fell, and for a moment, he appeared lost in contemplation. Then, raising his head, he began to speak, slow and deliberate. In the stories of our ancestors, do you not find evidence of love's triumph? It flowed through the veins of the faithful in the fire of trials. Who among you can deny the strength of love when Joseph forgave his brothers? Or when Ruth refused to leave her mother-in-law, clinging to her not by blood but by love? These were not easy paths, they were forged through the crucible of sorrow. Each word painted vivid images within the minds of those who listened. The tales woven into their history flickered like stars in the dark night, reminders of resilience born from love's embrace. Yet, doubt tugged relentlessly at their hearts. They were acutely aware that their own trials loomed larger than any story, barbed with the reality of their existence. Just then, a child's soft voice broke through the haze. But why does love feel so heavy? Why does it ask so much of us? In that moment, the complexity of love unfurled before them, layered with joys and sorrows intertwined. Jesus smiled warmly at the innocent inquiry but responded with depth. Love is indeed weighty, my dear child, for it is a force that demands vulnerability. To love is to open oneself to both the heights of joy and the depths of pain. But therein lies the paradox, in the giving of oneself, in the very act of surrendering to love, lies the promise of transformation. It is through love that we are reborn. The murmurs of the crowd now transformed, mingling hope with uncertainty. They contemplated the idea of rebirth, the tension that existed between being broken yet held together by the threads of enduring affection. How could they reconcile their yearning for freedom with the notion that love might pave a path through their suffering? As the night deepened, they were left lingering in the weight of possibilities. Each individual bore their own wounds, their own burdens. Were they merely to accept love as their guiding light, while the shadows of torment loomed nearby, with each soul quietly pondering the question? Another emerged quietly from the crowd, an elderly man burdened with the weight of years. In a voice thick with the wisdom of age, he whispered, "But what if love leads us into places we fear to tread? What if the darkness we avoid is where love calls us most fiercely?" The crowd held its breath, wrestling with the wisdom carved through time. Could it truly be that love awaited them in their places of deepest fear? Would they dare to follow that call, or would they retreat once more into the safety of their self-constructed prisons? The pulsing rhythm of uncertainty lingered, and a single question remained, echoing through the collective heart of those present: was the path to resurrection and understanding truly paved by facing love within the very shadows they wished to escape? The night wore on, the moon hanging heavily in the sky, as the crowd grappled with the weight of their convictions. Shadows danced between the flickering lights, mirroring the restless thoughts swirling in their minds. Whispers of doubt and hope intertwined, creating an atmosphere thick with spiritual tension. Jesus observed them, his enduring gaze cutting through the haze of fear and uncertainty. "What if," he began, his voice steady, "the very darkness you dread is a mirror reflecting your truest selves? What if within that fear lies the seed of your liberation?" A murmur passed through the crowd like a gentle breeze, coaxing out buried questions. A woman, her brow furrowed with concern, implored, "But Master, what of the pain? The suffering? Are we to invite it in, to let it cradle us in its arms?" "Pain holds no inherent value," Jesus replied, his tone gentle yet firm, "but how you respond to it defines your path. You yield to it or you rise above it. But love transforms that pain into purpose. It turns wounds into wisdom and leads you to reclaim your story." The man who had questioned earlier could not let go of his skepticism. "And what, then, do you promise us? What future lies on that distant shore? Does it await us, or is it merely a fantasy spun of sweet words and dreams?" "Ah, but stories are not mere fantasy," Jesus countered softly. "Remember, the power of a promise lies not in its fulfillment but in the courage it inspires. Take heed, every promise carries the weight of hope, but more importantly, it invites you to partake in the journey." As he spoke, a scattered gathering of children began to play at the edge of the courtyard, unaware of the gravity of the conversation unfolding among the adults. Their laughter rang out, bright and unguarded, contrasting sharply with the tension that enveloped the older souls. "Children embody the way of love," Jesus noted, glancing toward the joyful scene. "They possess an unfettered trust, weaving hope into the fabric of their lives, believing that tomorrow can be better than today." "But we are not children," another voice interjected, weary from struggle. "Life has shaped us differently. We bear wounds that none of us can easily forget. How then do we reclaim that childlike faith?" "Reclaiming faith begins with remembering," Jesus said, letting the moment hang in the cool night air. "Remember the moments when love pierced through your despair. Was it in the tender gaze of a mother, the laughter of a friend, or even in the silence when someone simply chose to be with you? In those instances, your heart was laid bare. Love thrives in vulnerability." The crowd shifted, some nodding in silent agreement, others wrestling still with their disbelief. "Is it truly enough," questioned a young man, "to simply remember? Will those memories sustain us when our reality is entrenched in suffering?" Jesus took a step closer to them, his expression softening. "The act of remembering is not merely passive. It invites action. It inspires change. Love demands recognition, and the moment you acknowledge its power, you become a vessel of that love for others. Awareness stirs purpose, purpose births change." A hush fell upon the gathering, each person wrestling with the notion that love, a seemingly abstract concept, had the power to alter the very course of their lives. Could their past experiences anchor them to a brighter future? Would recalling moments of love shake loose the chains of despair that bound them to a single path? Yet, another question loomed larger than their reflections. If acknowledging love sparked purpose, what would their purpose ultimately lead to? "Love is an invitation," Jesus continued, "a call to action in the face of fear. Will you answer it? Will you step into the unknown, bearing witness to the light you can create?" As the courtyard began to quiet once more, the heart of each listener pulsed with the weight of possibility. In that moment, they could almost taste the sweet air of potential, yet the shadows still lingered. Would they be brave enough to forge forward, or were they destined to remain shackled by their own fears? As the last flicker of the oil lamps fought against the encroaching darkness, a single lingering question captured their collective consciousness: in a world heavy with suffering, what form would their love take, and would they dare to make the journey where it led them? As the night deepened, an unsettling stillness enveloped the crowd, leaving them in a state of contemplative wonder. The whispers had quieted to a mere hum, each soul caught in the web of their own wondering. Amidst the flickering light of dwindling lamps, Jesus continued to watch with an understanding that revealed both his compassion and the depths of the mysteries that shrouded him. you ponder next steps," he said, breaking the silence. "But let me ask you, what are you willing to leave behind in pursuit of your truth? To truly embrace love, there are walls you must dismantle. What fears and doubts have become familiar comforts but constrain your spirit?" A thoughtful reverence filled the air as the crowd considered the question. They had constructed fortresses out of their pain, built towers of skepticism to protect themselves from vulnerability. A man, his hands clasped tightly, finally spoke, "Are we to surrender blindly? What of the sacrifices that await those who dare to love? What if our hearts shatter in the very act of reaching out?" "Every heart has known the ache of love lost," Jesus responded earnestly, "but every shattered heart also learns to beat anew. The beauty of love is not only in its fulfillment but in its willingness to face the unknown with courage. A heart that loves expands, even amidst hardship. You are called to glimpse the strength that lies within your fragility." That, a woman stepped forward, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the remaining lamps. "But we aren't all the same," she argued, her voice laced with an urgency to be heard. "Some of us carry burdens too heavy to bear, wounds that have made us wary of trust. You speak of love, but can it truly mend what seems irreparable within us?" "Ah," Jesus mused, the corners of his lips lifting gently, "it is precisely from our deepest scars that genuine love often emerges. Do not mistake love for something that acts as a balm alone, it is also the fire that refines. Your journey may seem steep, but let it be filled with grace as you navigate the terrain of your hearts. In your struggle, bear witness to the growth that can arise from humble beginnings." A soft breeze stirred, carrying the sweet scent of approaching dawn, intermingling with the remnants of conversation. Children still played in the background, their innocence a stark contrast to the shared burdens of the adults. Their laughter stitched together moments of clarity, a reminder of the joy that love can inspire, even amidst uncertainty. What of those who have abandoned hope? What do you say to the weary who feel nothing awaits them beyond this life's trials? A resolute elder asked, his voice cracking with the weight of years. To the weary, I say this: hope is not merely a wish, it is a promise made manifest when we begin to believe in tomorrow, Jesus articulated, his eyes aflame with sincerity. The seeds of resilience lie dormant in your hearts, waiting for the waters of love to awaken them. You have within you the ability to cultivate gratitude from every bare patch of earth, yet within the stricken silence, doubt still lingered, thick like the fog that rolls over the hills before dawn. A quiet realization gripped the crowd: despite all Jesus offered, the uncertainty of their paths remained. Was it possible that the love he spoke of could break through the walls they had built? As the first hints of light began to crest the horizon, illuminating the courtyard with a soft glow, a powerful thought emerged among the gathering. Could it be that the act of loving required an unyielding faith, one that must be nourished and tended to in its fragile infancy? The daybreak brought potential, yet the question still unfolded in their minds and hearts: if loving sometimes meant suffering, how prepared were they to embrace both, awakening to a truth that love, in its most profound form, could be both their salvation and their trial? As the first light of dawn flooded the courtyard, casting soft shadows that danced along weathered stones, the gathered crowd felt the shift within them echo the external changes. They had listened as Jesus wove promises of love and resilience through their doubts and fears, yet the question stirred within them like the restless sea, tranquil on the surface but tumultuous beneath. Several among them had begun to shift uncomfortably, their thoughts racing beyond what had been said. A young woman, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears, broke the reverie that enveloped the morning air. "But what if the world is different than the realm you speak of?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if love is merely a fantasy in this life filled with hunger, loss, and struggle? Can it truly exist alongside the harshness we face daily?" Jesus turned toward her, the gentle light illuminating the kindness etched into his features. "Ah, my dear, the world may indeed seem unkind," he replied, a warmth enveloping his words. "Yet it is often within the cracks of this world that love takes root. Each act of kindness, however small, is a declaration against despair. Remember, the beauty in love is often found not in its consistency, but in its resilience amid adversity. It flourishes in the grit and is nourished by the hearts that dare to extend even when their circumstances seem bleak." The crowd listened intently, each person reflecting on their own battles against the relentless tide of hopelessness. Among them was an older woman, weathered yet fierce, who stepped forward. "You speak of acts of kindness," she interjected, "but we live among those who take rather than give. How, then, do we reconcile love with betrayal? How do we love when our hearts have been bruised, left hollow by the hands of others? It is not simple, nor is it easy," Jesus replied softly. "Yet, just as the moon pulls the tides, love calls us to return, even after we've been swept away by pain. It teaches us to discern not only the intentions of others but the depths of our own capacity for compassion. In recognizing our scars, we become more deeply attuned to the scars of others. From this shared understanding arises a collective strength, a love that binds us through our experiences rather than divides us by them. At this, a child who had been playing at the edges of the gathering ran forth, her laughter momentarily brightening the air. "But what if I don't know how to love? What if it's too big and I'm too small?" she asked, eyes wide with innocence and concern. Addressing her with the tenderness of a mentor, Jesus knelt to her level, allowing the warmth of the morning sun to envelop them both. "Beloved child, love is not confined to grand gestures or wild declarations. It exists in the quiet moments of connection, the shared smiles, a helping hand, a listened ear. Love is the gentle courage to be present in another's pain and to celebrate their joy. And know this, even the smallest among you possesses the power to ignite love in the hearts of others, for it is the intention behind the act that carries weight." As the crowd absorbed his words, a veil of gleaming understanding seemed to settle over their shoulders. Yet even amid this shift, the undercurrent of uncertainty flowed beneath. Was it truly within their reach to embody this transformative power of love? Could they rise above their fears and extend openness to those who could potentially inflict pain? The horizon brightened, mixing shades of gold with emerging hues of blue, as a new day attempted to awaken. In this ambience of hope and contemplation, the murmurs began to redirect towards potential strides forward. Yet, one thought lingered heavily in the air: if love could indeed flourish amid struggle, what walls must they dismantle first to allow it the space to blossom? And in seeking to love, at what cost would they ultimately arrive at a deeper understanding of themselves? As dawn broke over the city of Jerusalem, the shadows of the night began to lift, revealing a world caught in a delicate balance between despair and hope. The courtyard, once heavy with tension, now radiated a glimmer of possibility as Jesus stood among the people, his presence both calming and invigorating. The murmurs of doubt from the previous night lingered like mist in the morning air. Yet Jesus, undeterred, sensed the shift within the hearts of those gathered before him. He spoke again, this time not as one merely offering words of consolation, but as a shepherd guiding his flock toward a deeper understanding of love's transformative nature. "Beloved friends," he began, his voice a soothing balm to their weary souls, "the journey towards love is fraught with challenges. Yes, pain and betrayal may come, but remember that love's very essence transcends the trials it faces. It is the light that leads us through darkness, the thread that weaves our shared stories into something beautiful." Peter, standing close by, felt the weight of his own questions begin to transform into renewed resolve. He looked around at the faces that had been etched with doubt and fear, now softening as they grasped the profound implications of Jesus' words, "Will you not embrace love even in its most challenging forms?" Jesus continued, now piercing the hearts of the listeners with his gaze. "Consider the love of a mother who sacrifices for her child, the friend who walks with you through despair. This is the kind of love that calls us to be greater than our Sylvester rise, not in spite of our fears but because of them." A collective shiver rippled through the crowd as they felt the stirrings of recognition. The burdens they carried, though heavy, were made lighter with the realization that love awaited them just beyond their fears. By daring to reach out, to love fiercely in the face of adversity, they could unlock the chains that bound them. Then, from the midst of the gathering, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks stepped forward, her heart visibly heavy yet bold. "But how do we find the strength to love again, Master? When betrayal weaves itself into the fabric of our souls?" Her voice trembled, yet it rang clear with the urgency of seeking truth. "Ah, my dear," Jesus replied, extending his hand towards her, "it is from the very scars of our past that new strength grows. Each wound tells a story, a testament to love's resilience. A heart that has been broken possesses the wisdom to cherish love more deeply. In forgiving, not only others but also yourself, you step into the light of healing. A silence enveloped the crowd, pregnant with the weight of reflection. For many, the idea of forgiveness had felt fraught with powerlessness. Yet in this moment, there was a dawning realization: love was not merely an end but a journey, one wrought with intention and purpose. Every act of love, however small, is revolutionary, Jesus continued, his voice rising to envelop them all. Rather than shaking our fists at darkness, we must become beacons of light. Thus, we are all called to ignite the flicker of hope in one another's hearts, for in unity lies our collective strength. The euphoric tender warmth began to radiate, spreading through the crowd like wildfire, igniting something dormant within each observer. Perhaps love's power to heal was greater than their trials could ever choke. That hope was indeed tangible, beckoning them towards unfathomable depths of grace. An elder man, emboldened by the transformation unfolding, spoke up. If we strive to embody this love you speak of, how do we carry it into a world so filled with hatred and despair? His voice echoed the doubts that still clutched at their hearts. The struggle felt insurmountable. Beloved, Jesus answered, his eyes ablaze with passion. Change begins in the heart, and from there, it ripples outward. Imagine a single act of kindness in a moment of darkness: a smile to a stranger, a hand reached out in help, a moment of shared compassion. Each act creates waves of love that can stir hearts, shift perspectives, and even alter fates. Hope soared through the assembled crowd as the realization settled in: the journey of love was not singular or isolated. Rather, it formed a tapestry woven from the threads of countless lives, each thread vital to the whole. They could become agents of change, lighting small sparks that could grow into infernos of hope. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating their faces, the once fearful crowd found themselves emboldened and transformed. The initial trepidation that clouded their resolve had faded, replaced by a growing determination to step out of their silos of safety and embrace love in action. Jesus, seeing the change within them, smiled widely. For I tell you, a love that is truly shared can never be extinguished. It flourishes, grows tenfold, becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Ask yourselves, what footprints will you leave in this world? Will they carry the weight of fear, or shall they be imprinted with acts of love and kindness? And at that moment, the truth hit them. A powerful revelation bound their hearts in unprecedented unity. They were not merely observers to Jesus' journey but participants in their own. The trials each had faced were stepping stones toward a life imbued with purpose and love, binding them not only to one another but to a destiny sounding far beyond personal aspirations. As the world around them shifted with the warming hues of the morning sunlight, their hearts sang a new refrain, a hymn of hope and renewal, testament to the promise that love, though often perilous, was ultimately a radiant force that could transcend despair and awaken the beauty of life, with fervor and passion. Rising from the depths of their beings, they resolved together to embrace the calling to become beacons of light in a world that so desperately needed them. Stepping into the embrace of love, they would carry forth the profound lesson that even in the bleakest moments, true transformation is born from a heart that dares to love unconditionally, endlessly, and courageously. And in that vow, each spirit awoke with a sense of divine purpose, echoing the eternal truth that love is, at its core, the most sacred and powerful gift humanity has ever known, a gift that, when shared, can change the very course of history.